Okay, let's unpack this. Stop for a moment and think about how often AI is touching your life right now.
Mm.
Whether you're applying for a loan or, getting a diagnosis from your doctor, or even if you're just scrolling through your social media feed, AI is quietly at work influencing everything.
It really is everywhere.
It's this incredible engine for efficiency and innovation, but here's the thing. It also opens up a truly complex landscape of ethical challenges. We're talking about really significant risks around fairness, transparency, and, well, who's accountable when things go sideways.
Yeah, accountability is a huge one.
Their mission in this depth dive is to pull back the curtain and show you exactly what those challenges look like, especially in the industries that matter most. We're going to be guided by an exhaustive comparative analysis called the Algorithmic Prism, a comparative analysis of AI ethics and bias in high-stakes industries by Rick Spare.
Ah, yeah, that's a great resource.
It really drives home that AI ethics aren't a single straightforward issue. Instead, as Spare puts it, they're refracted through the unique prism of each industry's distinct risk profile.
What's fascinating here for me is precisely that idea.
Yeah.
It's absolutely critical to understand these nuances. Why? Because a one-size-fits-all approach to AI governance is simply, well, it's untenable.
Right.
You wouldn't use the same safety checklist for a heart surgeon as you would for an online chatbot.
But of course not.
The potential for harm is fundamentally different.
Mm.
And it's the same with AI. Different sectors prioritize different ethical principles because the nature of the potential harms, the types of data involved, and even the regulatory environments are so fundamentally unique.
That's the core insight we're going to explore today. We'll start by building a foundational understanding of what we mean when we talk about AI ethics and bias, really, what trustworthy AI actually looks like.
Good starting point.
Then we're going to get granular. We'll take a deep dive into 4 high-stakes industries: healthcare, finance, criminal justice, and human resources. After that, we'll bring it all together, looking for those key differentiators that make each industry's ethical landscape unique. And finally, we'll wrap up with some strategic recommendations for how we can move forward responsibly and what to watch out for with emerging challenges, especially from the rapidly evolving world of generative AI.
Yeah, the generative stuff adds a whole new layer.
Definitely. So let's begin with the fundamentals. What exactly are AI ethics and bias, and how do we even start to think about trustworthy AI?
Okay.
Think of it like this. There's a set of universal ground rules, a kind of constitution that should guide responsible AI development and deployment. First on that list, and arguably one of the most critical, is fairness and non-discrimination.
Absolute paramount.
This principle isn't just a suggestion. It mandates that AI systems absolutely must not create or perpetuate unjust, biased, or discriminatory outcomes, especially when it comes to marginalized communities. The source material emphasizes that bias isn't just a simple technical glitch you can patch. It's a deep-seated issue that can arise from skewed training data, which is probably what most people think of first.
Yeah, that's the common one.
But also from the way algorithms are designed, or even from systemic inequities that are already present in society. And we're starting to see real action on this. Regulatory frameworks, especially in the European Union and Canada, are actually beginning to mandate fairness audits to ensure AI isn't leading to discriminatory results.
And that's crucial. Closely related to that, but distinct, are transparency and explainability.
Okay, break those down for us.
Sure. So if transparency is about letting you see the recipe for the AI, its data sources, its overall design, how decisions are generally made.
Like the ingredients list.
Kind of, yeah. Then explainability is about understanding why a specific meal was made that way. It's providing a clear, human understandable rationale for a specific output or decision made by an AI model.
Ah, I see. So one's the general process, the other's the specific result.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really challenging with complex black box models like deep neural networks. They're incredibly powerful, but trying to understand how they arrived at a decision is like trying to figure out how a magic trick works just by watching the outcome.
Right, it's just opaque.
It's a huge challenge, especially with complex systems. Some regulations, like the EU's General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR, even include a right to explanation, underscoring how important it is for AI decisions to be understandable. But what's fascinating here is the inherent tension. Often, the most accurate predictive models are also the least transparent. There's a real trade-off you have to make.
A trade-off between accuracy and understanding.
Precisely. Furthermore, full transparency isn't always desirable because it could compromise a company's trade secrets or even more critically, makes systems susceptible to manipulation by malicious actors through what are called adversarial attacks.
Ah, so making it too open could actually make it less secure.
It could, yes. So the appropriate level of transparency and explainability must be carefully calibrated to the specific context and potential risks. It's not a blanket rule.
That's a really important distinction because for many, the instinct is just make everything transparent. But what you're saying is that's not always practical or even safe.
Exactly.
So how do we balance that? And then if we can't fully see how the AI makes decisions and we can't always perfectly explain them, what happens when something goes wrong? Who's actually on the hook?
Now you're hitting on accountability and responsibility.
Yeah.
This principle is about creating clear mechanisms for assigning responsibility and providing a path for redress for harm or errors caused by AI systems.
So who pays
Yeah,
or who fixes it?
basically, yes.
Right.
The report emphasizes the need for robust governance, including clear audit trails and impact assessments. Without these structures, it's incredibly difficult to address failures or provide recourse to those who have been harmed.
Right.
Ethical guidelines are a good starting point, but many argue they're insufficient without legally binding regulations that provide enforcement mechanisms. You need some teeth behind it.
Makes sense. And interwoven with all of this surely is privacy.
And of course, privacy and data protection are absolute cornerstones. Given that AI often relies on truly vast quantities of sensitive personal data, upholding an individual's right to control their information is paramount.
Especially in areas like healthcare.
Absolutely. This is why concepts like privacy by design are so vital. It means embedding data protection measures such as data minimization, encryption, and anonymization into the system's architecture from the outset, rather than trying to bolt them on as an afterthought.
Build it in, don't add it later.
Exactly. GDPR, again, is a global standard for how this should be approached.
Beyond just privacy, AI systems also need to be safe, secure, and reliable. Break that down a bit.
Sure. Think of it this way. Safety means the system won't cause unintended harm, like a medical AI making a wrong diagnosis. Security ensures protection from unauthorized access or manipulation, like preventing someone from tampering with a financial AI.
Right, like hacking.
And reliability, or robustness, refers to its ability to operate accurately and consistently under varied, even unexpected conditions, like an autonomous vehicle performing reliably in different weather.
Got it. Safe, secure, reliable.
The source stresses that rigorous testing is absolutely critical to verify that an AI system performs as intended and can be trusted in real-world deployments. You can't just hope it works.
You really have to hammer on it.
You do. Finally, we arrive at the crucial principle of human oversight and determination.
The human element.
This is the non-negotiable part. Humans must retain ultimate control and responsibility for AI systems, particularly in high-stakes environments. It's a critical safeguard against what's called automation bias.
Oh, I've heard of that, where you just trust the computer too much.
Exactly that. That all too common human tendency to uncritically accept AI outputs, even when those outputs might be flawed. Implementing a human in the loop is essential for preventing errors, mitigating potential harm, and ensuring that the final decision aligns with human values and judgment.
So the AI suggests, but the human decides.
In critical contexts, absolutely. This is particularly vital in fields like healthcare, finance, and criminal justice, where AI decisions can have profound legal and moral consequences for individuals.
Okay, so we've laid out the core principles, but as we know, the devil's in the details, and in AI, that often means we run straight into algorithmic bias. Where do you even begin to untangle something that complex?
It is complex. The report defines this as systematic, repeatable errors in an AI system that lead to unfair outcomes, often privileging one group over others. And crucially, it's not just a simple technical glitch. It's a complex socio-technical problem.
Socio-technical, meaning it's about society and the tech.
Precisely. It can be introduced at multiple stages of the AI lifecycle. Let's really deconstruct that, starting with the source of many problems. Data-driven biases. If your training data is flawed, your AI model will inevitably learn and amplify those flaws.
Garbage in, garbage out, basically.
That's exactly it. And for most people, the first place bias creeps in is right at the very beginning with the data itself. One major category is historical bias.
Okay, what's that?
This occurs when an AI model is trained on data that simply reflects past societal prejudices and inequities. The algorithm learns these historical patterns as if they are objective facts and then, unfortunately, perpetuates them.
So it learns our past mistakes.
Exactly. A chilling example cited is predictive policing, where algorithms trained on historical arrest data from over-policed communities then recommend even more policing in those same areas.
Oh, wow. So it just doubles down on the existing problem.
It creates a truly discriminatory feedback loop, a self-fulfilling prophecy at scale.
And beyond historical baggage, another big problem is simply who or what is missing from your data. That's selection bias, right?
And that's right. It happens when the training data isn't representative of the real-world population the model will actually be used on.
Like the facial recognition example.
Perfect example. Models trained predominantly on images of lighter-skinned individuals show significantly lower accuracy when identifying people with darker skin tones. That's a direct result of this coverage bias.
Because the data didn't cover everyone equally.
Precisely. Or you have measurement bias, where the data collected, or the way it's measured, systematically differs from the true variables you're interested in.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure. The report mentions a student success model based only on data from students who completed an online course, completely ignoring those who dropped out.
Ah, so it's missing a huge piece of the puzzle.
Exactly. This leads to flawed conclusions about the course's effectiveness because it's measuring an incomplete picture.
Okay, so bias can come from the data itself. Where else?
Well, beyond the data, bias can also creep in during the design and development of the AI model itself. We call these algorithmic and model-induced biases.
Like how the algorithm is actually built.
Yeah, or the choices made during development. This includes things like proxy bias, which is particularly insidious.
Proxy bias, using a stand-in for something else.
Exactly. AI systems often use seemingly neutral stand-ins proxies for legally protected attributes like race or gender because you can't directly use those sensitive attributes in decisions legally or ethically.
Right.
However, these proxies can be unintentionally biased if they have a strong, hidden correlation with those sensitive attributes they're replacing.
Like using zip codes.
The example of using postal codes as a proxy for socioeconomic status is perfect here. It might inadvertently discriminate against racial groups concentrated in certain geographic areas, even if race itself isn't an explicit input into the algorithm. It finds a back door to the bias.
Wow, that's subtle. And what about stereotyping bias?
This is where an AI system simply reinforces harmful stereotypes. A classic example is a language translation model that consistently associates doctor with male pronouns and nurse with female pronouns, perpetuating gender bias in occupational roles. It's essentially learning these societal biases and then reflecting them back to us, amplifying them.
So the AI learns our stereotypes.
It can, yes. Finally, we need to consider human interaction biases. Even a technically sound algorithm can produce discriminatory outcomes if it's used within a biased human process.
So it's not just the AI, it's how we use it.
Precisely. Automation bias is a great example here.
Yeah.
This is the well-documented human tendency to overtrust and blindly accept outputs from an automated system, often ignoring conflicting information or even one's own judgment.
Just assuming the computer knows best.
Pretty much. This can lead to clinicians accepting a flawed AI diagnosis or judges giving undue weight to a bias risk score, essentially abdicating their own critical thinking.
That's scary in high-stakes areas.
It really is.
Yeah.
So what does this all mean? The multifaceted nature of bias reveals that purely technical solutions, like just debiasing a dataset, are necessary but fundamentally insufficient.
You can't just tweak the data and call it done.
Not at all, because bias can be introduced through model design and amplified by human interpretation. Effective mitigation requires a truly holistic, socio-technical approach.
Okay, holistic. Well, what does that involve?
It involves not only improving data quality, but also implementing transparent design practices, providing comprehensive training for human users to recognize and counter their own cognitive biases, and establishing robust human oversight mechanisms to serve as a final check on automated decisions. This is the whole ecosystem.
Given the complexity of these challenges, it's clear we need a robust framework to guide AI governance. That's where the NIST AI Risk Management Framework, or AI-RMF, comes in, right?
Yes, exactly. This is a voluntary, non-sector specific guide from the U.S. National Institute of Standards and Technology. Think of it as a comprehensive playbook designed to help organizations identify, assess, and manage AI-related risks throughout the entire AI lifecycle, from idea to retirement.
A playbook. I like that. So it's a guide, not a strict law.
Correct. It provides a common language and an adaptable strategy for cultivating trustworthy and responsible AI, serving as a foundational model for more specific, legally binding industry regulations that might follow. It sets a baseline.
And how is it structured? You mentioned functions.
Right. The AI RMF is structured around four core functions that guide organizations in a continuous cycle of risk management. The first is govern.
Govern, like setting the rules.
Essentially, this foundational function focuses on establishing a culture of risk management across the organization, starting right from the top. It involves defining clear governance structures, assigning roles and responsibilities for managing AI risks, and establishing policies and procedures that ensure AI systems align with organizational values, ethical principles, and regulatory standards. Effective governance truly is the prerequisite for accountability.
Makes sense. What's next?
Then you have MAP. This function is all about systematically identifying and contextualizing the risks and potential benefits associated with an AI system.
So figuring out where the dangers might be.
Exactly. Organizations are guided to map out the entire context in which an AI system will operate, everything from who will use it to what data it consumes. This helps them identify potential sources of bias, privacy violations, security gaps, and any other harms that could arise at any stage, from its initial design and development all the way through deployment and decommissioning.
Okay, so govern sets the stage, map finds the risks, then what?
Next is measure. This focuses on using a combination of quantitative and qualitative methods to analyze, assess, and monitor AI risks and their impacts.
Putting numbers on it.
Numbers and qualitative assessments, yes. It involves developing and employing metrics to track things like AI system performance, fairness, reliability, and effectiveness over time, ensuring that the system remains stable and compliant. It's about putting actual evidence behind the risks you've identified in the map phase.
Got it. Govern, map, measure, and the last one.
And finally, manage. Based on the risks identified and measured, this function is all about allocating resources to treat and mitigate those risks.
So actually doing something about the risks.
Precisely. This includes implementing specific bias mitigation strategies, strengthening security protocols, or enhancing human oversight. The manage function emphasizes that risk management isn't a one-time fix. It's an ongoing process, requiring regular review and iteration to ensure the chosen measures remain effective as the AI system evolves.
So it's a cycle. Govern, map, measure, manage, and repeat.
That's the idea. The ultimate goal of the AI RMF is to help organizations cultivate trustworthy AI. NIST defines the characteristics of trustworthy AI as including validity and reliability, safety, security and resiliency, accountability and transparency, explainability and interpretability, privacy, and fairness with the mitigation of harmful bias.
That's quite a list.
It is. These characteristics are the essential building blocks for developing AI systems that are not only technologically powerful, but also ethical, just, and aligned with societal values.
And why is this NIST framework so significant?
Its significance lies in its flexibility and comprehensiveness. It is not a rigid, one-size-fits-all rulebook, but an adaptable framework that provides a clear path for managing the complex landscape of AI risks. By establishing a consistent, actionable standard, it helps organizations build a solid foundation for ethical, secure, and transparent AI practices, thereby strengthening public trust and preparing them for the evolving regulatory environment.
All right, so with that foundational understanding in place, here's where it gets really interesting. We've talked about universal principles, but as you said earlier, a one-size-fits-all approach just won't cut it.
Not even close.
So where do we start to see these ethical principles truly get tested, and why does context matter so much? The ethical and governance challenges posed by AI are profoundly shaped by the unique operational realities, data ecosystems, regulatory histories, and societal stakes of each industry.
Yeah, this is where the PRISM idea really comes into play.
Let's jump into our sector-specific deep dives, and you'll see exactly what we mean. First up, let's explore healthcare, the ethics of life and well-being.
Okay, high stakes right off the bat.
Absolutely. AI integration promises to revolutionize patient outcomes. Everything from better diagnoses to personalized treatments, but it also introduces profound ethical challenges because it directly impacts human life. The potential for AI-driven errors to cause direct and irreversible physical harm places this sector in a unique ethical category, demanding the absolute highest standards of safety, reliability, and accountability.
No room for error, really. In healthcare, AI is being rapidly adopted for a wide range of critical functions. For instance, in clinical decision support, AI models are interpreting medical images like X-rays or CT scans to detect diseases like cancer with accuracy comparable to expert physicians.
Wow.
They also assist in diagnosis and prognosis, helping predict clinical deterioration and enabling preemptive action. Then there's personalized medicine, where AI, even generative AI, is used to develop highly tailored treatment plans, considering a patient's unique symptoms, medical history, and even what are called social determinants of health, or SDO.
The SDOH, like where you live, your income.
Exactly. Things like their living environment or socioeconomic status. It's also accelerating drug discovery by analyzing complex biological data. Lastly, AI is significantly enhancing administrative efficiency to combat clinician burnout, with AI-powered scribes automating note-taking and smart tools streamlining scheduling. It's about freeing up doctors to be doctors, not data entry clerks.
That's a big deal for burnout. Now, what makes the ethical stakes so incredibly high here? You mentioned the risk of harm.
Right. There are some key differentiators that set healthcare apart. The foremost is the risk of direct physical harm. A misdiagnosis from an AI, a flawed treatment recommendation, or even an incorrect medication dosage can have devastating, irreversible consequences for a patient.
Life or death.
Literally. This elevates the ancient do no harm principle to the absolute highest priority and necessitates an exceptionally rigorous approach to safety and reliability.
And the data must be super sensitive too, right?
Absolutely. Another significant differentiator is the nature of highly sensitive data and strict privacy regulation. Healthcare data is among the most private an individual possesses, governed by stringent laws like HIPAA in the U.S.
Right, APA.
This creates a powerful tension. Training truly effective AI models requires access to large, incredibly diverse data sets, yet protecting patient confidentiality is paramount. This challenge is further compounded by the fact that obtaining the necessary data and infrastructure for proprietary models is often beyond the economic reach of many smaller healthcare organizations.
So the big players have an advantage.
They often do. And we also have the challenge of social determinants of health, SDOH, that you mentioned. Health outcomes are profoundly influenced by factors like race, socioeconomic status, and environment. But here's the problem. This crucial contextual information is often missing from the structured clinical data typically used to train AI models.
The stuff in the electronic health record might not capture all that.
Often it doesn't. This data gap is a primary driver of algorithmic bias, leading to AI recommendations that can be inequitable or ineffective for marginalized populations because the system simply doesn't have the full picture.
Okay. And who's ultimately responsible?
That leads to the final point: accountability and the licensed professional. Healthcare has a very well-established structure of professional accountability. Licensed clinicians retain ultimate authority and legal responsibility for patient care.
The buck stops with the doctor.
Pretty much. When an AI system is used, the final decision and the accountability for it still rests with the human professional. This principle is increasingly codified in regulations which mandate that AI should augment, not replace, human clinical judgment. It's a critical safeguard.
So how does bias actually manifest in healthcare? The consequences are not theoretical. They can be life or death.
They absolutely can. A landmark 2019 science study found striking racial bias in health risk prediction. It looked at a commercial algorithm that used healthcare cost as a proxy for health need.
Cost as a proxy for need. How does that work?
Well, the assumption was that sicker people cost more. But because less money was historically spent on black patients compared to white patients with similar chronic conditions, the algorithm systematically underestimated the needs of black patients.
Oh, wow. So the historical spending bias became algorithmic bias.
Exactly. Actually recommended healthier white patients for extra care ahead of sicker black patients, directly perpetuating racial disparities. It's a chilling example of how historical data can reinforce systemic problems.
That's awful. What other examples?
We also see pervasive underrepresentation in medical imaging datasets. AI models for diagnosing skin cancer, for example, are significantly less accurate for darker skin tones.
Right. You mentioned that earlier with facial recognition. Same problem here.
Very similar problem. It's a direct result of coverage bias. The open access datasets these models are trained on are overwhelmingly composed of images from light-skinned individuals. One study even found no images from individuals with an African Caribbean, or South Asian background.
None at all.
In that particular dataset, yes. This lack of diversity means models risk misdiagnosing life-threatening conditions in underrepresented populations simply because they haven't seen enough diverse data.
And it's not just race, right? Gender bias, too.
Yes, there's gender and ethnic bias in diagnostic tools. A 2023 Nature Digital Medicine study on bacterial vaginosis, BV models, showed accuracy varied significantly across ethnic groups, performing best for white women, but with the highest false positives for Hispanic women and false negatives for Asian women.
So it worked differently for different groups.
Significantly differently. Similarly, if an AI for cardiovascular disease diagnosis is trained predominantly on male data, it's at high risk of misdiagnosing a heart attack in a female patient who might present with different symptoms.
Given these incredibly high stakes, the regulatory framework for AI in healthcare must be pretty developed.
It is one of the most developed. The FDA is a key regulator in the U.S. Many clinical AI tools are classified as software as a medical device, SAMD, and thus require FDA oversight for safety and effectiveness, just like a new drug or a medical device.
So the FDA treats AI like a medical device.
In many cases, yes. The FDA is also developing adaptive regulatory approaches, like a predetermined change control plan for AML models that learn post-deployment.
Because the AI changes over time.
Exactly. This allows some modifications without needing a brand new pre-market review for every minor update, which is crucial for constantly evolving AI. There's also a strong trend towards mandated human oversight. CMS, for example, issued a memo requiring human review for AI-driven coverage denials in Medicare Advantage plans.
So you can't just let the AI deny coverage automatically.
Not without human review, according to CMS. And in 2024, Illinois even passed a law banning unsupervised AI mental health therapy, setting a critical precedent that humans must be involved in such sensitive areas.
Interesting. Are there other governance models being looked at?
Yes, beyond formal regulation, there are life cycle-based governance models being proposed. The National Institutes of Health's Total Product Life Cycle (TPLC) model aims to prevent bias at every stage of AI development and deployment.
From start to finish.
Right. And the concept of algorithmovigilance, inspired by drug pharmacovigilance, calls for continuous evaluation of AI algorithms post-deployment to monitor for bias and ensure fairness over time. It's about ongoing vigilance, not just a one-time check.
Algorithmovigilance. Like watching the algorithm constantly. Okay, moving on, let's explore finance. The ethics of economic stability and fairness.
Another huge area.
The financial services industry was an early adopter of algorithmic decision-making, and AI is now deeply embedded, from how you get a mortgage to how your investments are managed. Its ethical landscape is defined by a dual mandate: ensuring fairness and protecting consumers from economic harm, while also managing immense systemic risks that could potentially destabilize global markets.
Indeed. AI is fundamentally transforming finance in countless ways. In credit and lending, AI models are widely used for everything from credit scoring to loan approval, analyzing vast data sets, including non-traditional data like your online purchasing habits, to assess creditworthiness faster than ever.
Non-traditional data, like what I buy online, affects my loan application.
Potentially, yes. In algorithmic and high-frequency trading, AI algorithms execute trades at superhuman speeds, analyzing market data in real time to optimize strategies faster than any human could.
The algos we hear about.
Those are the ones. For risk management and compliance, AI is critical for detecting fraud and identifying illicit activities like money laundering, recognizing complex patterns invisible to human analysts.
Finding needles in haystacks.
Essentially. And in customer service and personalization, AI-powered chatbots provide 247 support, and AI analyzes your customer data for hyper-personalized financial advice, from where to invest to how to save.
So what makes this context ethically unique? What are the big pressure points?
Well, a paramount concern, very specific to finance, is the potential for systemic risk. Think about it. The widespread adoption of very similar AI models, often from a small number of third-party vendors, could lead to what's called algorithmic monoculture.
Monoculture, like everyone using the same playbook.
Exactly. If many models react to a market signal in the same way, they can amplify volatility, trigger flash crashes, and create a cascade of failures that threaten the entire financial system.
That's a truly chilling thought. One bad algorithm takes down the market.
It's a real concern. Then there's the black box liability challenge. The opaque nature of many advanced AI models creates a significant legal and ethical quandary. If a black box credit scoring system wrongly denies a loan, determining who is legally and financially responsible, the AI developer, the institution using it, or the data provider is incredibly complex.
Right. Who do you sue?
That's the question.
Yeah.
This ambiguity exposes firms to litigation and can leave consumers without clear avenues for redress. Furthermore, the complex and fragmented regulatory landscape means multinational financial institutions must navigate a patchwork of evolving AI regulations that differ significantly across jurisdictions, like the EU's Risk-Based AI Act versus the US's more sector-specific approach.
So it's hard to have one global standard.
Very hard. This lack of harmonization creates significant compliance challenges and ethical dilemmas.
And finance is ultimately about profit, right? Does that create tension?
Absolutely. We can't ignore the inherent tension between profit and fairness. The financial industry has a very strong commercial imperative to maximize profit and a fiduciary duty to shareholders, which can sometimes be in direct tension with the ethical goal of ensuring fairness and promoting financial inclusion.
So, making money versus being fair.
AI can certainly expand credit to underserved populations, which is great, but it can also be used to exploit vulnerabilities through practices like mass personalized marketing or discriminatory pricing, walking a fine line.
Now, we've seen bias in action here too, unfortunately. The Apple Card issue.
Yeah, remember the gender bias in credit decisions with the Apple Card and Goldman Sachs in 2019? Its AI-driven algorithm was accused of gender bias, reportedly offering significantly higher credit limits to men than women, even those with similar or better financial profiles.
Even when the women had better financials.
That was the allegation. This highlighted how AI systems, trained on historical data reflecting past societal biases, can lead to discriminatory outcomes even when gender isn't an explicit input into the algorithm. The bias sneaks in.
And mortgages too.
Even more recently, research revealed racial bias in mortgage lending. A Lehigh University study using large language models found that these AI models consistently recommended denying more loans and charging higher interest rates to black applicants compared to otherwise identical white applicants.
The LLMs learned the bias.
It appeared so. The model seemed to have replicated historical racial disparities, suggesting black applicants needed a credit score about 120 points higher than white applicants for the same approval rate.
120 points, that's a huge difference.
It's a significant barrier. And then there's discrimination through proxies, which we mentioned before. Algorithms can use seemingly neutral, non-traditional data like your smartphone type, your email provider, or even your typing habits as proxies for creditworthiness.
My typing habits.
Seriously, it's been explored. While these factors might seem innocuous on the surface, they can unintentionally correlate strongly with protected characteristics like race, age, or socioeconomic status, leading to subtle discrimination without ever explicitly using those sensitive factors. It's like a hidden pathway to bias.
So, how is finance regulated in this space? Is it catching up?
In terms of governance, finance has a mature but adapting framework. Established regulators like the SEC, CFPB, and FINRA are taking the lead, clarifying that existing financial laws apply to AI, even if the AI wasn't specifically envisioned when those laws were written.
So they're applying old laws to new tech.
Largely, yes. Their approach is mostly technology neutral, focusing on the fairness and integrity of the outcome, not the specific tool used to get there. FINRA, for example, applies its rules on supervision and communications to AI as it would any other technology.
Focus on the result, not the method.
That's the idea. This emphasis extends to governance, risk management, and supervision. Regulatory guidance consistently emphasizes that financial firms must establish robust internal AI governance, including sophisticated model risk management and data governance frameworks.
Human oversight is key here too, I imagine.
Absolutely. A critical component is maintaining meaningful human oversight, with the ability for humans to review and override AI-driven decisions when necessary. And lastly, the influence of international standards is significant. The EU's GDPR and its Comprehensive AI Act are setting high benchmarks for transparency, accountability, and fairness that multinational financial institutions cannot ignore.
So Europe is pushing the envelope globally.
In many ways, yes. These international standards often become the de facto global standards due to their comprehensiveness.
Okay. Now let's turn to criminal justice. The ethics of liberty and public safety. This feels like maybe the most fraught area.
Nowhere are the ethical stakes of AI potentially higher. Here, algorithms are used by the state to make decisions that directly impact fundamental human rights, including the right to liberty, due process, and equal protection under the law.
When AI makes a mistake here, the consequences are massive.
They can be devastating. Wrongful arrests, unjust incarceration, and the amplification of deep-seated societal biases. It's a truly fraught domain.
Where is AI actually being used in the system?
It absolutely is. AI is being deployed across the entire criminal justice continuum. In predictive policing, tools forecast where and when crimes are likely to occur or identify high-risk individuals, aiming to allocate police resources more efficiently.
Minority Report kind of stuff.
That's the popular image, though the reality is often less dramatic but still impactful. Risk assessment instruments generate scores predicting a defendant's likelihood of reoffending or failing to appear for trial, informing critical decisions regarding bail, sentencing, and parole.
So AI is helping decide who stays in jail.
It's influencing those decisions, yes. In surveillance and identification, technologies like facial recognition identify suspects, automated license plate readers track vehicle movements, and AI analyzes vast surveillance footage. And in forensic analysis, AI assists in analyzing complex evidence, from DNA mixtures to digital forensics.
It's really everywhere in the process. What makes the ethics here so unique?
Several things. The most profound is the direct impact on fundamental rights. An AI error in this context can lead to the deprivation of liberty through wrongful arrest or imprisonment, directly engaging constitutional protections related to due process, equal protection, and freedom from unreasonable searches. The stakes couldn't be higher.
And it's the government using it, right, that changes things.
Critically, the state is the sole actor here. The government holds a monopoly on the legitimate use of force, creating a profound power imbalance between the state and the individual. This raises acute concerns about mass surveillance, social control, and the erosion of civil liberties.
And the data. We talked about historical bias. That must be huge here.
Compounding this, we face the problem of inherently biased data. The data feeding criminal justice AI is not an objective record of reality, but a reflection of historical and ongoing policing practices. Decades of documented racial bias and policing mean historical crime data is itself a product of systemic inequality.
So the data itself is already biased.
Virtually guaranteeing that AI systems will learn, replicate, and unfortunately amplify these same biases. It's a vicious cycle built into the data itself.
And if you're wrongly convicted because of a biased AI...
The harms caused by biased AI in this system are often irreversible, with a lack of meaningful redress. It's incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to undo the damage of a wrongful conviction or years spent in prison.
You can't get that time back.
Exactly. Avenues for redress for individuals harmed by a flawed algorithm are often unclear and inaccessible, with accountability being frustratingly diffuse among the government agency, the private vendor that supplied the AI, and the individual officer or judge who made the final call.
No one person to hold responsible.
It's very difficult. We've seen this bias play out in real-world cases, often with devastating consequences. The biased recidivism predictions of the comparative algorithm were famously highlighted in a seminal 2016 ProPublica investigation.
Oh yeah, I remember hearing about Compass. What did they find?
It found a significant racial bias. The formula was almost twice as likely to falsely flag black defendants as high risk of reoffending as it was for white defendants.
Twice as likely to be flagged high risk incorrectly.
Yes. Conversely, white defendants were much more likely to be mislabeled low risk, meaning black individuals were disproportionately subjected to harsher decisions based on flawed bias scores.
And that predictive policing feedback loop you mentioned earlier.
Yes, the predictive policing feedback loop. Here's how it works again. Algorithms trained on historical data from over-policed communities direct even more resources to those same areas. This leads to more arrests for low-level offenses within those communities, which then feeds that new arrest data back into the algorithm.
So the AI confirms its own bias.
The AI learns its prediction was correct, further amplifying discriminatory practices and creating a self-perpetuating cycle of surveillance and arrests in certain neighborhoods.
What about facial recognition accuracy?
Furthermore, inaccurate facial recognition is a grave concern. Studies from NIST and other research have consistently found that many facial recognition systems have significantly higher error rates, particularly false positives, when identifying people of color, women, and younger or older individuals.
So it just doesn't work as well for some people.
Exactly. This inaccuracy creates a grave risk of misidentification, leading to false accusations and wrongful arrests based on faulty AI matches, all because the technology itself is less reliable for certain demographic groups.
So what's the governance situation? It sounds like a mess.
The governance landscape in criminal justice is perhaps the most nascent and contentious. There's currently no comprehensive federal law in the U.S. governing AI in this domain, just a patchwork of state and local laws, mostly restricting specific technologies like facial recognition.
Just city by city, state by state rules?
Largely, yes. This has led to strong calls for bans and moratoriums from civil rights organizations like the NAACP and the ACLU, who are demanding bans on biased historical crime data and predictive policing and moratoriums on AI use until fairness can be thoroughly evaluated.
So some people are saying just stop using it for now.
That's a significant part of the debate. Emerging principles from the U.S. Department of Justice emphasize radical transparency, oversight, and community engagement, including independent oversight and public disclosure of methodologies used in these systems.
Transparency seems key here.
It is. A central debate that has emerged is the glass box imperative. This refers to the fundamental conflict between proprietary black box algorithms, where the inner workings are secret, and the constitutional right to due process.
If you can't see how it works, how can you challenge it in court?
That's the core argument. Many argue that for AI to be used in decisions affecting an individual's liberty, its inner workings must be fully transparent, allowing defendants and their legal teams to challenge the evidence derived from it. The opaque nature of commercial tools is often seen as fundamentally incompatible with these constitutional requirements.
Right, the black box versus glass box debate. Okay. Finally, let's explore human resources, the ethics of opportunity and dignity.
Another area touching almost everyone.
HR departments are increasingly turning to AI to automate processes across the entire employee life cycle, from the moment you apply for a job to how your performance is evaluated. While this promises efficiency and scalability, these tools also act as powerful gatekeepers to economic opportunity. The primary ethical challenges here revolve around ensuring fairness, preventing systemic discrimination, protecting employee privacy, and ultimately preserving human dignity in the workplace.
AI is integrated into a wide array of HR functions, fundamentally changing how companies manage their workforce. In recruitment and hiring, AI-powered applicant tracking systems, ATS, screen resumes, rank candidates, analyze video interviews for behavioral cues, and even deliver targeted job ads.
So AI is reading my resume and maybe even watching my interview.
Quite possibly, yes. For performance management and compensation, AI can monitor productivity, provide automated feedback, and even inform promotion and salary recommendations.
My boss might be an algorithm.
Or at least heavily influenced by one. In internal mobility and employee development, AI matches employees to internal growth opportunities and suggests personalized learning paths. And for employee engagement and communications, AI can automate internal communications and conduct sentiment analysis of employee messages to gauge morale.
Okay, so what makes this context ethically unique? Why is HR different?
Well, first, AI systems act as a gatekeeper to economic opportunity. Bias embedded in these systems can systematically disadvantage entire demographic groups, creating significant barriers to economic mobility and, unfortunately, reinforcing societal inequalities on a massive scale.
If you can't get the job because of biased AI, that's huge.
It has huge ripple effects. We also face the erosion of workplace trust and dignity. The constant use of AI for employee monitoring, automated performance evaluations, and even termination decisions can foster a culture of surveillance and deep distrust.
Feeling like you're always being watched by a machine.
Exactly. It risks dehumanizing the workplace, reducing employees to mere data points, and stripping away empathy and nuance from critical human decisions. Then there's employee data privacy. AI in HR involves collecting vast amounts of incredibly sensitive employee data, everything from your performance metrics to your communications.
Right, they know a lot about you.
This raises significant privacy concerns, especially when employees aren't fully aware of what data is being collected or how it's being used to make career-altering decisions.
And accountability. Is it clearer here?
Actually, there's often diffuse and opaque accountability. When a biased hiring decision occurs, for instance, it's incredibly difficult to pinpoint who is truly responsible. Is it the third-party vendor who developed the AI? Is it the HR department that implemented it? Or is it the hiring manager who relied on its output?
Same problem as in finance and criminal justice, really. Passing the buck.
This diffusion of responsibility can leave wronged applicants and employees with little practical recourse or clear paths to address grievances.
Are there concrete examples of bias in HR AI?
These are not just theoretical concerns. We have clear case studies. Take Amazon's gender-biased recruiting tool. This experimental tool, designed to streamline hiring, was trained on Amazon's past male-dominated tech resumes.
Oh, yes, I remember this one.
It quickly learned that male candidates were preferable and began penalizing resumes that contained words associated with women, like women's chess club captain, and even downgraded graduates from all women's colleges.
It learned to be sexist from the data.
Essentially, yes. Amazon ultimately scrapped the project because they simply couldn't guarantee it wouldn't be biased. It was a stark lesson.
What else?
Then there's stereotyping in job ad delivery and image generation. Research shows AI algorithms delivering high-paying job ads more frequently to men on platforms like Facebook, perpetuating gender disparities and access to information.
So men see the better job ads more often.
That's what the research suggested. And AI image generation tools, when prompted, often reinforce occupational stereotypes, consistently depicting engineers as male and nurses as female, reflecting and amplifying societal biases.
And outright discrimination.
The EEOC, the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, has also taken action against automated age and disability discrimination. In one egregious case, recruitment software was explicitly programmed to reject older female applicants over 55 and male applicants over 60.
Programmed to discriminate.
Explicitly. Another lawsuit accused an AI-enabled HR platform of systematically discriminating based on race, age, and disability. These are not just accidental errors. They can be direct outcomes of biased programming or training.
How is this being regulated? Is anyone stepping in?
The regulation of AI in HR is emerging but accelerating. There are no specific overarching federal AI laws for HR yet, but the EEOC clarifies that existing anti-discrimination laws like Title VII of the Civil Rights Act and the Age Discrimination in Employment Act, ADEA, absolutely apply to automated systems.
So, old discrimination laws cover AI discrimination.
That's the EEOC's stance. This means the employer is legally responsible for biased AI, regardless of who developed it. There's also new targeted legislation like the No Robot Bosses Act being proposed to regulate AI in termination decisions and protect workers from automated firing.
No Robot Bosses Act. Interesting name.
It gets the point across. Emerging best practices and proposed regulations heavily emphasize transparency and human oversight, meaning transparency with employees and applicants about AI use, and maintaining a human in the loop for all critical personnel decisions.
Human in the loop again seems crucial everywhere.
It really is. A critical governance cornerstone is vendor due diligence. HR departments are advised to rigorously vet third-party AI tools regarding bias testing, training data, privacy safeguards, and clear redress mechanisms, given how many rely on external solutions for their AI needs.
So, check your supplier carefully.
Absolutely. Don't just buy it off the shelf without asking hard questions.
Okay. If we connect all these individual industry insights to the bigger picture, what we've just seen across healthcare, finance, criminal justice, and human resources reveals a crucial truth. While AI ethics share a common language, their practical meaning is fundamentally reshaped by context.
Exactly. It's not just a nuance. It's the core reason a blanket AI ethics rulebook is doomed to fail.
You wouldn't use the same safety checklist for a heart surgeon as you would for an online chatbot, right? The potential for harm is fundamentally different. This variation isn't arbitrary. It's a direct consequence of 4 critical differentiating factors.
Absolutely. The first is divergent risk profiles, the nature of harm. The primary type of harm dictates ethical priorities. In healthcare, the primary risk is direct physical and psychological harm, a misdiagnosis, an incorrect treatment that could cost someone their life or well-being. This elevates safety, reliability, and beneficence, do no harm, as paramount principles demanding stringent regulatory oversight like the FDA's.
In finance, the harm is primarily economic and systemic. For an individual, it's being unfairly denied a crucial loan. For society, it's a potential for market instability or flash crashes that ripple across the global economy.
Right.
So the ethical debate here heavily centers on fairness, fiduciary duty, and systemic risk mitigation. It's about protecting both individuals and the entire system.
In criminal justice, the harm is to civil liberties and fundamental human rights. An AI error can lead to wrongful arrest, unjust imprisonment, or a life irrevocably altered. The imperatives here are due process, non-discrimination, and explainability. The debate is often about the constitutional permissibility of using certain AI tools at all, given the power of the state.
And in human resources, the primary harm is to opportunity and dignity. AI systems act as gatekeepers to economic advancement, with bias leading to systemic disadvantage for entire demographic groups. The focus here is on equal opportunity, fairness, and privacy in the workplace.
This divergence in the very nature of harm clearly explains why a single, universal ethical framework is simply insufficient across all sectors. The priorities just have to be different.
Okay, so risk profile is number 1. What's the second differentiator?
Our second differentiator is the data divide. Provenance, sensitivity, and structure. The data fueling AI varies significantly by industry, leading to distinct bias challenges. Healthcare AI relies on highly sensitive, protected clinical data from electronic health records. The challenge often lies in missing social determinants of health, leading to significant coverage bias that impacts how effectively AI serves diverse populations.
Right, the missing context.
In finance, AI uses a mix of highly structured transactional data, and increasingly unstructured alternative data. Much of this is proprietary and processed within opaque black box models, making it incredibly difficult to audit for subtle biases or for consumers to understand why a specific financial decision was made about them.
The black box problem again.
For criminal justice, the data primarily consists of historical administrative records like arrests, court filings, and sentencing decisions. This data is unique because it's not a record of objective reality, but a reflection of institutional practices, making it inherently skewed by past policing biases and thus a direct conduit for amplifying discrimination into the future.
The data itself is the bias, in a way.
In large part, yes. And in human resources, AI primarily processes unstructured data, like resumes, video interview transcripts, and even sentiment analysis from communications. This data is laden with human language and implicit biases that AI can easily learn, systematize, and then perpetuate, leading to issues like stereotyping.
What's fascinating here is how the very nature of data in each sector predisposes AI systems to different types of bias, from coverage gaps in healthcare to proxy discrimination in finance, historical bias in criminal justice, and stereotyping in HR.
Precisely. The data shapes the bias. Our third differentiator is regulatory maturity and approach. We see a clear contrast here.
How so?
Sectors with high regulatory maturity, like healthcare and finance, have long-standing powerful regulatory bodies, the FDA, the SEC, FINRI. These agencies are adapting existing, often prescriptive rules to AI. The core debate is how to regulate effectively within established, often strict frameworks.
They have the tools, they're just figuring out how to apply them to AI.
Mostly, yes. In stark contrast, sectors with low regulatory maturity in the AI context, such as criminal justice and human resources, often lack dedicated, powerful AI regulators. Governance is typically a fragmented patchwork of existing anti-discrimination laws and contentious new proposals.
Right, like the bans and moratoriums.
Exactly. Here, the debate is often much more fundamental. Whether to use certain AI applications at all, with strong calls for outright bans and moratoriums until safeguards are in place, it's a more foundational argument.
Okay, risk, data, regulation. What's the fourth factor?
Finally, we examine the accountability gap. Who is responsible? This varies wildly. In healthcare, accountability is clearly anchored to a licensed human professional, like a doctor or clinician, who retains ultimate responsibility for patient care. If a mistake is made, there's a clear point of liability.
Clear responsibility.
For finance, accountability largely rests with the corporate entity, the bank or investment firm, which has a fiduciary duty to its clients. But it's complicated by the black box problem of AI and the widespread use of third-party vendors, which can obscure the exact chain of responsibility.
A bit fuzzier.
Definitely. In criminal justice, accountability is incredibly diffuse and deeply problematic. When a biased algorithm contributes to a wrongful conviction or an unjust sentence, it's incredibly difficult to hold any single party responsible, whether it's the government, the vendor, or the individual officer or judge. And sadly, meaningful legal redress for the harmed individual is very rare.
Almost impossible to pin down.
And in human resources, accountability is similarly distributed and opaque. It's often shared between the employer who buys the AI, the third-party AI vendor who builds it, and the HR personnel who implement it. This makes it very difficult for an individual to prove discrimination and seek recourse when a biased hiring decision occurs.
This raises an important question: how the clarity or lack thereof in accountability mechanisms profoundly influences governance and ethical progress across these industries. It's a fundamental challenge. If no one's clearly responsible, how do you ensure things get better?
That's exactly the problem.
So what does this all mean for the future? We need to shift to actionable insights, focusing on how we navigate the future of AI through strategic foresight and truly context-aware governance.
Right. The report proposes a framework for context-aware AI governance built upon the NIST AI risk management framework we discussed earlier, but with crucial modifications for tailoring it to specific needs.
So take NIST, but adapt it.
Precisely. A one-size-fits-all approach to AI governance is simply destined to fail because the risks and priorities are so different. This context-aware approach means we need to govern with priority, explicitly defining ethical priorities based on the sector's primary risk. Is it patient safety for healthcare or fundamental constitutional rights for criminal justice?
Focus on what matters most in that sector.
Exactly. We must also map to specific harms, focusing risk mapping on harms relevant to that particular sector, like discriminatory impact on hiring versus biased surveillance, feedback loops, and policing. Don't just look for generic risks.
And then we need to measure what matters most, aligning our metrics with those prioritized ethical principles. This means looking at diagnostic accuracy across demographic subgroups in healthcare, or measuring impact on civil liberties and criminal justice, not just raw crime reduction numbers.
It's about measuring the right things. Finally, we need to manage with proportionality. Risk mitigation strategies should be proportional to the harm. A black box algorithm might be perfectly acceptable for a customer service chatbot, for instance,
Low risk.
but it would be wholly unacceptable for a sentencing tool where explainability is paramount to due process and fairness. The fix has to match the potential damage.
Okay, so that's the framework. What about specific actions for different groups? Policymakers.
Building a responsible AI ecosystem requires concerted action from all stakeholders, not just the tech companies. For policymakers and regulators, the report recommends fostering hybrid regulation,
Hybrid, meaning?
promoting international harmonization on issues like data privacy and cybersecurity, where common standards make sense, while also empowering sector-specific bodies to create tailored rules for their unique contexts.
Global standards where possible, local rules where needed.
Exactly. They also need to mandate transparency and independent audits for all public sector and high-stakes AI systems, particularly in criminal justice and employment, and invest in glass box research and bias mitigation to create more inherently interpretable AI models. Fund the research into better, fairer AI.
What about the companies actually building and using AI, industry leaders?
For industry leaders and organizations, the advice is clear. Establish robust, multidisciplinary governance that includes not just data scientists and engineers, but also legal experts, ethicists, compliance officers, and domain specialists. Get everyone in the room.
Not just the tech folks.
Definitely not. They must operationalize human in the loop for all critical decisions, ensuring AI augments human judgment, never fully replaces it, and that humans are trained to critically evaluate and override AI outputs. Don't just pay lip service to it.
Make it real.
And it's vital to invest in data quality and continuous monitoring to proactively collect diverse, representative data and continuously audit for performance drift and subtle biases that can creep in over time. Keep checking.
And for the techies themselves, the developers building this stuff.
And for technologists and developers themselves, the recommendations are equally clear. Embrace ethics by design, integrating ethical considerations from the very start, adopting principles like privacy by design and fairness by design from day one. Don't wait until the end.
Build it in from the ground up.
Yes, they should champion explainability, actively working to create more transparent and interpretable models, or developing robust post hoc explanations for black box models when direct transparency isn't possible.
Make it understandable.
And critically, cultivate diverse development teams. A wider range of backgrounds and life experiences within the team can help identify potential biases and blind spots that a homogeneous team might entirely miss.
Different perspectives catch different problems.
Exactly. The report even uses the phrase white guy problem to highlight how a lack of diversity can inadvertently lead to inequitable product design and unintended harms for diverse user groups. It's a call for broader perspectives in the design process.
As we look to the future, we have to acknowledge the rapid evolution of AI, particularly generative models like large language models, which introduce entirely new layers of complexity and new kinds of ethical dilemmas.
Yes, these are introducing novel risks that we're only just beginning to grasp. There's the risk of authoritative misinformation, often called hallucinations.
Right, when the AI just makes stuff up but sounds confident.
Exactly. Generative AI can confidently fabricate information, presenting it as fact. This poses grave risks in high-stakes contexts. Think incorrect medical advice from an AI chatbot, flawed financial analysis that could lose someone their savings, or even citing non-existent case law in the legal brief. Ensuring factual accuracy is a critical new frontier for these models.
How do you even police that?
It's a huge challenge. We also face novel privacy and intellectual property dilemmas. The ability of generative AI to create synthetic data, images, and text raises entirely new questions. How do we ensure synthetic patient data doesn't inadvertently reveal real information about individuals? Who owns the copyright to an AI-generated image or piece of music? And does its creation infringe on human artists' original work if it was trained on their creations?
All the lawsuits happening now.
These are perplexing legal and ethical questions being debated worldwide, and the answers are far from settled.
And then there's the impact on jobs.
And beyond bias, there's the specter of job displacement. The current wave of AI is capable of automating not just manual labor, but incredibly complex cognitive tasks, with many entry-level and even junior professional roles potentially vulnerable.
It's not just factory jobs anymore.
Not at all. This raises profound ethical questions about economic inequality and the very future of work, requiring society to grapple with large-scale shifts in employment.
And underlying all of this, the profit motive you mentioned earlier.
Ultimately, the future of AI ethics hinges on a fundamental, perhaps unabated tension: profit motive versus public good. AI development is overwhelmingly dominated by commercial entities driven by profit and by governments seeking efficiency and control.
Right.
This creates a systemic pressure to optimize for speed and influence rather than for fairness and equity. A 2021 survey of experts even revealed that a significant majority fear ethical principles focused on the common good won't be the primary driver of AI design by 2030.
That's concerning, that ethics might take a back seat.
It is. This underscores the absolute necessity of robust, independent, and legally enforceable governance. Relying on corporate self-regulation or voluntary ethical principles alone is simply insufficient to steer AI toward a truly equitable future. We need real rules.
So, to bring it all home, what we've seen in this deep dive is that AI ethics are not abstract concepts. They are concrete, living principles deeply embedded in each industry's specific functions and values. In healthcare, it's ultimately about patient safety and saving lives. In finance, it's about systemic integrity and economic stability. In criminal justice, it's about holding due process and fundamental human rights. And in human resources, it's about protecting opportunity and dignity in the workplace.
And remember, bias is not merely a technical problem that can be fixed with a few lines of code. It's a profound socio-technical one, rooted in our history, our institutions, and our own cognitive limitations.
It's bigger than the algorithm.
Much bigger. Therefore, solutions cannot be purely technical. They must be holistic, combining fairer data with more transparent algorithms, robust regulations with meaningful human oversight, and technological innovation with an unwavering commitment to ethical first principles.
It takes everything working together.
It does. The future of AI will truly be what we choose to make it. It demands a collective commitment to context-aware governance, clear accountability, and an unwavering dedication to the public good.
What stands out to you from today's deep dive? How do these insights apply to your own experiences or industries? We encourage you to reflect on these profound questions as AI continues to evolve around us, shaping our world in ways we're only just beginning to understand.